Alright. Deathloop 2, let's talk about it. It's not happening. It's not happening. And that's because it's actually Dishonored 3.
Huh?
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't they just make two separate games? Well, it actually makes more sense, in my opinion, to merge these two games into one mega sequel, especially since we know now that Dishonored and Deathloop actually take place in the same universe, although they're separated by this huge time gap. That and the fact that Dishonored and Deathloop are virtually identical in terms of gameplay, using a lot of similar abilities and tools between the two. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you exactly why I think that Arkane Studios would be smart to combine Dishonored 3 and Deathloop 2 into one massive game. One that respects the traditions of the past with Dishonored, while also continuing forward with the new direction for the franchise that was introduced in Deathloop. Now, if you enjoy this video and find it informative or valuable in any way, do make sure to leave a like to help signal boost my content, and leave a comment down below with your own thoughts on this wild conspiracy theory of mine. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Arkane Studios focused discussions, and definitely make sure to hit the bell icon so you're always in the loop when a new video drops. Let's do this. So on a gameplay front, I think we can expect Dishonored 3 to follow pretty closely in the footsteps of what we've become familiar with. Namely, a big focus on player freedom in large sandbox levels with a wide arsenal of weapons, powers, and gadgets. Deathloop introduced a new wrinkle into the established formula of the larger Dishonored franchise, however. You guessed it, guns. Deathloop was the first proper first-person shooter that Arkane Studios released, and because firearms have now been introduced within this universe, it just wouldn't feel right to go back to simple swords and flintlock pistols. Therefore, Dishonored 3 will mark a major transition for the series going forward. The focus on stealth or head-on combat will still be present, but it will be more focused on gunplay moving forward, although you'll still have access to a melee weapon of some sort, since that has been Arkane's specialty for quite some time. Assuming guns are the major player in the overall weapon pool, Dishonored 3 could be a much faster-paced game than what we've seen historically, more in line with Deathloop's frenetic action combat and speedier stealth. Now, in terms of which characters the game might focus on, I think it's an incredibly safe bet to say that Colt and Juliana will have some sort of role in the story of Dishonored 3. Whether that role is big or small, I can't say with certainty, but from my perspective, it would just be awesome to see both of them again and find out exactly how they've progressed since the end of Deathloop. Part of me feels like Juliana in particular is going to be given more of the spotlight in this game, perhaps being even one of the two playable characters, because yep, I think Arkane are going to continue the tradition of having multiple protagonists. Maybe Juliana in the present timeline, and maybe a brand new character in the past timeline. This leads me into the most important crux of my theory about Dishonored 3, which is that the game would essentially act as a full-scale version of the A Crack in the Slab mission from Dishonored 2, but on steroids. Throughout the entirety of the game, you will be able to jump back and forth between the past of Dishonored and the present of Deathloop at any time with the push of a single button. You would be able to see different versions of all the levels and how they change between the past and present, opening up new areas to explore and new ways to accomplish your objectives. Now, how exactly this would work on either a technical level or let alone a narrative level is honestly beyond me, but just the mere idea of this just sparked my imagination. And honestly, Dinga, I hope you're watching this, because I think if anyone can pull off this miraculous technical feat, it's you guys. You and the team in Lyon can do this. The setting of Dishonored 3, I think, is plainly obvious to anyone who has been paying attention to this universe for as long as I have. It's time to take us to Tivia. I've been wanting to see this place for years, and since the country has already been teased in Deathloop under a different name, it's a natural conclusion to make that we would next venture to this continent. Tivia in the lore of Dishonored draws heavy inspiration from Eastern Europe and Asia. Countries like Russia, China, and Vietnam from are key touchstones for the culture and the environment of Tivia, especially when you look at the names of some of the major cities. Arkane are well positioned to put their own artistic spin on these real-world places and give them their own style and flair. Imagine a major city bustling with life, inspired by places like Moscow or Beijing, but in the Dishonored universe. Arkane have already drawn heavy inspiration from places like Industrial Revolution era London for Dunwall, or Mediterranean countries like Spain, Italy, and Greece for Karnaca in Dishonored 2. Why not draw some more inspiration from parts of the world that maybe aren't as often represented? On top of this, the topography of Tivia could open up some interesting possibilities in terms of both gameplay and level design. In the Dishonored novelization, The Corroded Man, an icy tundra not too dissimilar to real-life Siberia is briefly touched upon, but just imagine that as an entire sequence where you would have to avoid enemy patrols in the middle of a blizzard. This is just a small idea, but there could be infinitely more if Arkane's brain trust can come together and find common ground on new ways to push their expertise and design philosophies forward. But I hear you say, Arkane's next game is Blade, right? And yes, while Blade is currently in development and will be the next title that Arkane Studios releases, this doesn't necessarily mean that internal talks have not already taken place about another mainline entry in the Dishonored franchise. Hell, these talks could be happening right now for all we know. There's always a chance that Dishonored 3 could be the next game from the studio after Blade is wrapped up, and I believe those chances are pretty high. So this is my wild and insane conspiracy theory about Dishonored 3 and Deathloop 2 being the same game, but the most important part now falls to you. I want to know exactly what you guys think in the comments down below. Am I just crazy? Am I delusional? Or do you guys have more interesting thoughts and speculation that you'd like to share? I invite anyone and everyone to share your thoughts down below, and let's go ahead and start a discussion because I think this is going to be really interesting. Thanks so much for watching the video, and if you have gotten this far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more Arkane Studios discussions, among other general gaming related content. Also, be sure to hit the bell icon, that definitely helps, so you never miss out on future videos. I do also have a channel Discord server that you can join where you can keep up with me and you can engage in some really awesome in-depth discussions with members of this amazing community. A link to that is going to be in the description down below, so please consider being a part of this awesome family. And remember that the outsider walks among us. I'll see y'all next time.